Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today we will be taking a look at the category of Best Costume Design. Now, we're starting to get to the categories that are a little bit tricky to figure out, and this one I would argue really is a coin toss between two films. I think I have a pretty good idea of what's winning, but I can't be sure, and from this point onwards, anything I say in one of these videos should be taken with a grain of salt. I'm really not sure, but I'm going to give it my all, and we're going to see if we can figure out who's winning costume design. And let's start out with fifth most likely to win, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Now, costume designer for this film is Jenny Beavan, who is a three-time Oscar winner for A Room with a View, Mad Max Fury Road, and just last year for Cruella. And like Cruella, this is a film about the fashion industry. And having seen it, it does make sense that this is the sort of film that would get nominated for costume design and nothing else. Not to be rude, but the costume design really is the one aspect that stands out, because the film really is about the fashion industry, and there's one particular sequence where we're witnessing a fashion show and the models come in wearing one gorgeous gown after another. So it really is showing off the costume design. And the thing is, this is definitely going to get some votes because people who see the film are going to be taken by the costume design because, again, the costume design is really the one element you walk away from this movie remembering. However, the fact that this is the only nomination that the film has means a lot of voters are unlikely to see it. And yes, Jenny Beavan has a very impressive record in this category, but I don't think there's any hurry to award her again so quickly, especially for a film that not a lot of people have seen. Jenny Beavan has been rewarded, and her work in this film is very good, but I don't think it's going to be enough to stand out against the other movies that are more well seen and well liked overall. Fourth most likely to win is Babylon. Costume designer Mary Zaffries. She's on her fourth nomination. She was previously nominated for True Grit, La La Land, and The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. So, the work in this film is honestly it's good, it's interesting, but it's not as flashy as you would expect. With the exceptions of the costumes that the Jean Smart character wears, there's not a ton of very, very flashy costumes. And yes, it is an old Hollywood movie, but I the nomination makes sense. But for some reason, I just don't think it's going to win here. And part of that is the film is only up for 3 Oscars. We know it's winning production design, and it's in a good position to win score, but I don't know. I'll get to that category later. But if it wins those two, it's not also winning costume design. This movie is divisive enough, and the fact that it's likely to win 2 Oscars is already kind of crazy. I really can't see it winning all 3 of the Oscars it's nominated for. And I think the work is noticeable, but not as noticeable as some of the other films, and the other films are more well-liked in general. Not to say that a movie has to be super well-liked to win in this specific category, but I don't know, it does help. And I think maybe the work in Babylon just feels a little bit too modern and not period accurate, and I think that is going to hurt it along with the film's divisive reception. So I think this is a good nomination, but I don't think it's going to win. Third most likely to win is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Costume designer Shirley Kurata, sorry. This is her first nomination, and she really doesn't have anything notable, at least anything that I recognized prior to this movie. I think almost everyone attached to this film is on their first nomination, and the nomination itself did kind of feel like a tag along. Oh, we're nominating the movie in so many categories. This is a little bonus nomination for it. Which is not to say that it's bad work, but it's not the most obvious work. It's really the variety of the costumes that's being rewarded more than any one specific costume. the image I've shown is of Evelyn's ball gown in the movie star universe, but there's also the outfit she wears as an opera singer, and there's uh, the hot dog finger universe, or the things they wear in the bagel worshipping universe. Like, there's all sorts of weird outfits, and there's so many different types of outfits, not to mention the more mundane things they wear in the normal universe that I think have sort of taken on a life of their own just due to how iconic everything in this film has become. So I understand the nomination. What really took me by surprise was when this won the Costume Designers Guild Award for costume design in a sci-fi or fantasy film, beating out another movie that I'll get to in a second. Now, I don't think that means it has the strength it needs to actually win this category. Um, I do think it's just not as flashy as the top two. However, it's all solid work, and the movie is obviously very, very well liked, but at a certain point, you have to ask the question, how many Oscars can this movie win? Because this really could like be the most Oscar wins for a Best Picture winner in a long, long time, and I I don't it can't win everything, and this is one of the things that I highly, highly doubt it has the strength to actually win. But maybe it's not impossible. I mean, this movie has exceeded all expectations so far, so maybe don't write it out. Second most likely to win is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Costume designer Ruth E. Carter, who, of course, previously won for the original Black Panther, making her the first African American woman to win in this category. What's crazy is that if she won the Oscar, she would actually become the first African American woman to win more than one Oscar in any category, which is absolutely insane. And I want to stress, it could absolutely happen. The costumes in the film are very showy, particularly the funeral sequence that opens the film. And this has won, it won the Critics' Choice Award and it won Hollywood Critics Association. So it was right on track to potentially winning the Oscar. It didn't win BAFTA, but it wasn't nominated for BAFTA, and BAFTA overall did not seem to like the film in general. So I was kind of torn about that. But then when it lost CDG to Everything Everywhere, which was considered a big surprise, uh, now, just to be clear, this could still win, and I think this would be a deserving win. What's holding me back is the fact that it is a sequel, and so many of the costumes in this film are very similar to what was seen in the first movie. There are a decent amount of new costumes, particularly the opening funeral sequence, but I worry it's not going to be enough. And most of the costumes that we've seen are things that we've already seen before in the first film, which is why I ultimately don't think that this can win. I would be cheering if it did win. I think it's very, very strong work. I also think The Woman King should have been in this category, but that's not really relevant. Um, and it is a shame because it's good work. But I ultimately don't think it's going to win, but it could. The film that I am nervously placing my bet on to win is Elvis. Costume designer Catherine Martin, who previously won in this category twice for Moulin Rouge and The Great Gatsby. She is married to director Baz Luhrmann, and she does the costume design and production design for all of his films. And the costume design in this film is very, very showy. Obviously, in a film about the life of Elvis Presley, you have to show a lot of various costumes, and there's so many iconic looks that Elvis had over the decades that have to be recreated, to say nothing of the rest of the cast. Now, because we see the costumes evolve and change over time, because there's so many of them, that's what makes me think Elvis is most likely to win. Elvis won BAFTA and it won the CDG for period costumes. And it's funny, before the CDG Awards happened, I assumed that they weren't gonna be much help in this category because I'm like, oh, Elvis will win period and Black Panther will win fantasy. But the fact that Black Panther lost now seemingly makes it a much closer. I'm seemingly it makes Elvis out to be the front runner, and I don't think it's a lock. I think the work in Black Panther is very, very showy. And some would argue the fact that we have all this footage of what Elvis's outfits looked like means they didn't have to invent new costumes the way they did for Black Panther. But I would argue that that's not really what's on the forefront of voters' minds. Voters are really thinking about just what clothes looked best and just the magnitude of what had to be done in this movie. And the fact that Catherine Martin has won this award twice before. She's a branch favorite. I know I argued the exact opposite thing with Jenny Beavan, but I don't know. This movie is really, really well liked. It's a Best Picture nominee. I think 8 nominations. I can't imagine it going home empty handed, and this I think is the most likely thing for it to win, but it could definitely also win in some other categories. I, I just think it's going to happen, and I think the costume design is too flashy to be ignored, but it very easily could be Black Panther. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time when I will be taking a look at the category of Best Documentary Short Film. See you then.